Well, hello, everybody. I am Todd Stocker, your PivotPreneur host and coach. And this is a number 5 type episode, which means if you're new to our podcast, every 5th episode, we do an interview with somebody who has made a job pivot, a life pivot, an event pivot, some kind of change in their life. This time around, since it's the end of the year, I am going to go back through the pivots interviews that we did, kind of pull out some really key things that were cool and impactful, and we'll listen to the wisdom and advice of other people. So here we go. Let's pivot.
Here we go. Pivot. Pivot. Pivot.
All right, thanks for joining me. It is the end of the year, and those of you listening on the podcast or watching this on YouTube, thanks again for this past half a year, actually. We've only been doing this podcast since July 1st, and it's been amazing, the stories that I've heard coming in. If you have a question or comment about the podcast or the YouTube channel, please let me know, and maybe you'll get on the podcast and the YouTube channel itself. But it's just been a really fascinating year. I've learned so much from many of you, and just from doing these podcasts. And today is no exception for you. You're going to learn. If you haven't heard the interviews from this past half a year, you're going to learn so much just in these little clips that I have. So I'm just going to dive right into it. The first one, the first interview I did on, actually it was episode 6. I didn't hit a 5 on that one, but it was episode 6, and it was Brian King from Rock U Music School, and his whole interview was just this transition from a business sense into really wanting to do something that he really wanted to do to start this music school, because he's a musician. And one of the key, his story that I pulled out has to do with when he started the Rock U Music School during COVID. A lot of things have changed. Go to even one of the very first episodes I did on the Great Resignation. So many things for you have changed during that COVID year. But the main point of this next clip that I'm going to show you is this: intentional steps lead to actions. Okay, so listen to how he had made his steps, intentional steps, and taking the next steps into starting Rock U Music School.
March 2020 is when everything kind of happened, and when things really started picking up for me, which is really weird to say. But, at that point, then I'm working from home. My wife was working from home. I've got 2 boys who are distance learning, 1 3-year-old, 1 infant, and it's mass chaos. But at the same time, as a lot of people were doing at that point, you're just kind of reevaluating everything, because the world is turned upside down. Your life is turned upside down. And I've got 4 kids who I love and adore, and they're my everything. And so you're just reevaluating, saying like, why am I doing what I'm doing? And so it kind of worked out the way it was supposed to, because then, I'm home all day working from home, as we all were. And my day is structured around Zoom meetings and distance learning. And my wife and I are meeting at 6 a.m. every morning, looking over our calendars for the day, saying like, all right, when do you have meetings? When do I have meetings? When do our kids have their distance learning, Zooms that they've got to be on? When does the baby got to be fed? And so all of a sudden, we're having a very structured day, which was rare for us, especially with a family of 4. But then we're kind of carving out pockets of work time and things like that. And the other big thing for me, as I was realizing, is that because we're all working from home and we're all learning how to work remote via Zoom, all of a sudden, even though I'm on Zoom calls all day and working all day, there's a ton of free time because none of us know how to do what we're doing. And all of a sudden, my company is not investing in new products and innovation anymore, because they're just trying to figure out how to keep the lights on.
Right.
And so I've got all this spare time all of a sudden throughout my day. And, my thoughts are going to, why am I doing this? Why am I doing what I'm doing when it's not my thing? It's not my passion. And then the whole music school thing kind of started percolating in my brain a little bit more. And so all of a sudden during Zoom meetings, I'm finding myself jotting down ideas. And within a week, I kind of go back to all the notes I'd written, and I've got about 12 pages, single spaced in a Word document of just this, brain mush of ideas that I had about a music school. And so I'm like, what's going on here? This could be something. I don't know. And so then over the next 2 weeks, I took my brain mush and turned it into just a mini business plan and started talking to my wife about it, looked at her and say, hey, is this a thing? And she's like, this could be a thing. Just start talking to people. So then I started leaning on my network of friends who own their own businesses, people who I trust, who are smart, and kind of feeding it to them saying, is this a thing? Is what this whole idea, could this be something? And every single one of them who I trust and I know would give me a candid response are saying, yeah, dude, you've got something here.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of steamrolled from there.
So episode 10 was from a friend of mine, Kendall Johnson, who is the founder and owner of Underdog Films. Now, he actually owns a couple of, even since this interview we did this last year, he has launched a couple of different offshoots of that, of his media company. And he was up here in Minnesota for a while, did a couple of different things with some churches and some organizations that were really fascinating work. He's what I called on the interview the triple threat, because he not only does the filming, the editing, the interviewing, he actually writes all the music, and everything he does is, I don't know, it's top notch. And really the point of what Kendall has, at least in this clip, that he talked about so many cool things, his experience, but basically the point with Kendall is know thyself. So here's Kendall.
It was in 2019 when I got to go out to, I got to intern at Hans Zimmer studio in Los Angeles. Like, I thought, okay, this is gonna be a great opportunity. Like, I'll get to work on all these films. I'll get a job there. I'll be a part of that. And part of my time there, I slowly started to realize, like, I don't think this is what I want. Like, they wanted me to stay longer too, and I was like, no, I can't. Part of me wanted to, part of me was like, no, like I want to get back to my family. It's like, I want to get back home. It's like, I need to get back.
There's that too, Sheila and the boys, yeah.
and then in addition to that, there was just something about like, I don't know if I want to do music on stuff that I'm not proud of, that I'm not, and I'm not saying that their films were great that they did stuff on, but like, there's, what if there was a horror film or like a 50 Shades of Grey? I'm just like, do I really want like Sheila and my boys and my name being stamped on that in some way? I'm just like, I know people can make arguments all day long, but it's just what I wrestle with. And for me, I'm just like, I don't think I want to do that. So then I came back to because then I would be working for someone else and that whole thing. So I'm like, well, I'll produce my films and I'll just write the music to them. And then within the context of my business, like, it's just like, it all just kind of spiraled and steamrolled from there. So.
Right. Our third interview that I did was with Brett Caslow, and I'd known him for so many years because we'd been involved in church together. We were in a band together, but he retired, went to a different couple of places. You'll hear a little bit about that in his interview. But the point of what he shares with us today in this clip was, your past leads you to your future pivot and opportunities. So learn about that, think about your past, and just see how the points of your past in history lead to your pivot. Here's Brett.
I was 32 years a corporate guy at 3M International here in St. Paul, Minnesota. Great career with 3M. Got to the point where it's about time to retire after 32 years. And I did that in October of 2020.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's been a while. It's hard to believe, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of when we were running and gigging and doing our things with church, etc. October 2020, we knew at that time I had remarried my wife, Stacy, who's also my business partner and Evolve Action Coach. I knew at that time that we wanted to do something together and own a business together. We just weren't 100% sure what that was. So left 3M, went to work for a year and a half or so with a local landscaping company called Willow River. Great experience because I learned a lot about how a smaller business works versus a large corporation. A lot of the problems they have are not the same that a large corporation has, right? And so I worked on their backside of things, helping improve processes, opened a pool company for them, did multiple different things with them until me and Stacy decided it was time to branch out and buy this franchise and move forward with that. So we've been doing that since March of 2022.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
So
Yeah, so you were at the landscape company. What was what was going on internally where you're like, you know what, we're thinking about this kind of move. So kind of a two-part question. What led up to, what was the process to make the pivot? And then why coaching? Why going into what you're doing now?
Yeah, great question. Landscaping business pushing 60. And, there was a lot of the stuff that I was doing was physical manual labor, right? It's just part of what you do when you work for a smaller company. You have to get out there and do it when somebody's not there to do it. I was doing a lot of the inside stuff as well, but I was still outside quite a bit after, having a corporate job. So the pivot was, okay, I can't do this forever, right? This is not really what I was built for to begin with. I was built for all the tools and processes that I'd learned in my corporate role at 3M, which was marketing and sales training, sales development. And so, again, knowing that I had another 8 to 10 years to work, this is when we started pursuing the franchise business. My wife came from a franchise business, so she understood that very well. And so she looked at a bunch of different things, and coaching was a huge natural fit for both of us because that's what we did in our old jobs. So nice. Once we decided we could take those skills that we had from her days in corporate, my days in corporate, and turn them into things that help our local business community, that's what we decided to do.
And finally, on episode 20, Dan Miller from 48 Days to the Work You Love, 48days.com, one of my all-time favorite mentors online. We've met a couple of times. I just so appreciate everything he does. He's been podcasting. He was one of the first original business podcasters 20 plus years ago. This interview was one of my, they're all my favorites, but this one, because he's been such a mentor, he has just pours into us, especially in goal setting, as we get into that in the interview on episode 20. But the main point of what I picked out and what he's going to share with you is every experience is a pivotal learning moment. Every experience that you go through, there's always something that you can learn from it. So watch this from Dan.
Last week, I went to Atlanta for the Porsche driving experience.
You said that on your podcast. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. It was outrageous. I mean, the horsepower in a lightweight car that you can just jump in and go. And I had a young instructor riding with me who was really instructing me because the course was full of different modules, challenges, obstacles, and all that. It was a 1.6 mile track, but it was not just circular. So we would go down a straightaway and hit this slippery area where as soon as you got on that pad, the concrete would shift real rapidly and it would throw you into a spin where you had to try to recover. And then there was an area that had sprinklers going. It was water, a real big circular area. You would go in there as fast as you could, and they'd say, okay, now crank the wheel to the outside and hit it, accelerate, full acceleration. So you go into a spin and try to do a controlled spin where you keep it going because the acceleration and the momentum that you've got. Then there was an area where it was a long straightaway, and he says, okay, come to a complete stop. So I did. He said, push the brake all the way down as hard as you can. I did. He said, now floor it. Put the accelerator to the floor. I mean, you got to be kidding me. No. So the engine is fully revved. Turbos are just screaming. So when I release the brake, there's not that nanosecond delay between the time you push your foot down. No, it's already screaming. He said, now make sure your head's against a headrest because it'll snap your neck. And then let go of the brake. And then And then it's go, 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 go. And I'm like, you're going to be kidding me. You're reaching the end of this thing. Go, 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 go. Okay, now brake hard. And then into a full brake. I mean, just, yeah, it was an adrenaline rush. Believe me.
Yeah.
I mean, I was exhausted after an hour and a half.
I'm feeling it just hearing you talk about it. Wow.
So,
wow.
Now here's a takeaway from that, Todd. You'll
Yeah.
appreciate this, because I always look at an experience like that. What am I going to learn? So I'm going and just starting out, I'm going in the turn. I got my hands at 3 and 9 o'clock as instructed and going in these turns and all. He says, Dan, your hands are too tight. You've got way too tight a grip. Your upper arms are stiff. He said, when you go into turning quickly, you're going to be restricted because you're so tight. He says, if you could be less aggressive, this car will dance with you.
Whoa.
Whoa. You got to be kidding me. If you're less aggressive, this car will dance with you. Now, when I look at that and just, being a thinker, take out the word car. If you're less aggressive, your wife will dance with you, your husband, your child, your teacher, your boss, your dog, your neighbor. Yeah. There's so many things, but those are the kind of things, opening myself up to a new experience. Now, I'm a car guy and I love the thrill of just doing that. But I go into that expecting to come away with some kind of a life principle, not just some, thrill for the day, but coming away with something that I learned in that experience.
So again, I've just loved doing these interviews. If you've made a pivot or a change recently within the last couple of years and want to share that in an interview with me on the podcast and our YouTube channel, just send me a note at PivotPreneur.com or ToddStalker.com, and we'll talk that through and see if that'll work out. Go to those two websites, PivotPreneur.com and ToddStalker.com, and leave a comment, ask a question. I'd love to engage with you. This isn't just about me. It's about wanting to add value and leadership to your life. That's my personal mission statement. So it's been a great, crazy 2022 here at on the podcast at PivotPreneur, and I'm looking forward to 2023. Looking forward to serving you even more. So hopefully this review was helpful. Again, go back to those episodes 6, 10, 15, and 20 to see those interviews in full, or hear those interviews in full, and you'll learn so much from them. So again, hope that's been helpful. You're why I do this podcast and this YouTube every single week. Watch for my Monday motivation videos as well that come out, and check out my new online course, which is steeply discounted just as an introductory price. And just go to pivotpreneur.com for that. So I appreciate you. You guys have a great end of the year, and I can hardly wait to see you in the new year. Peace.